Have you ever wondered what separates you from chess geniuses? Well, besides a few IQ points you're missing, you're only a few basic steps away from unleashing a grandmaster inside of you. I've analyzed the top 100 chess players in the world and found out the secret to their success. But you might ask yourself, do you have to start at an early age to become good? You might look at Hikaru or Magnus and think that you have no chance just because they started playing chess probably right after birth. But it's really not that big of a deal. Take a look at this guy. When he was turning 18 years old, he was still learning how the pieces move, but he used the time machine to watch this video. So he became a grandmaster shortly after. We're starting with the basic stuff and slowly building up to more advanced concepts. To get the most out of this video, make sure to watch all the way through. Let's start off with the first tip. As you begin your chess journey, you shouldn't bother with opening theory too much. You should instead focus on the opening principles that I'm about to teach you. As a beginner, always start your games with e4 or d4 to grab the center. Then develop your knights. Don't make the mistake of coming out with your queen too early, because you won't accomplish anything. You will have to move the same piece twice, which gives your opponent tempo. Rather focus on developing each piece to its best square and castle as quickly as you can. Don't needlessly move pawns because they can't go back. Each time you move a pawn, you weaken squares around it. After you've played enough games to understand these principles, it is time to learn just one opening for white and one opening for black. As you climb up the ladder and play against tougher opponents, you're gonna have to learn more theory. But for now, you could learn the London system for white and the King's Indian defense for black, because they're played the same no matter what your opponent does. Before we move on to step 2, I'll teach you how to play these openings in less than a minute. This is the King's Indian defense, and it can be played against literally anything white does. This opening will increase your win rate because you don't have to play into white's theory. You can play on your own terms. So here's what you're gonna do. Bring this knight out and fianchetto the bishop so you can castle. You're always gonna play this pawn here. The other knight goes to c6, and the light squared bishop usually comes to g4 to take their knight and remove the defender of the d4 pawn. But if they play this move and prevent your bishop from coming, you can just fianchetto it. And one more thing, if the e4 pawn ever comes out, first play d6 to prevent them from attacking your knight. And this right here is the London system. So you're once again gonna be repeating this same setup no matter what black does. Usually black does something like this. Your plan is going to be trading these knights, kicking their other knight away, and then crushing them. Now we're going to talk about the middle game. Don't mind this position, I'm just using it as an example. You're going to drastically improve simply by being aware of when your pieces are undefended, and taking advantage of the time your opponent has undefended pieces. So if you keep leaving your pieces undefended, sooner or later, your opponent will hit you with a tactic, and you're going to lose material. This is how most games are lost. To prevent this, keep your pieces defended. On the other hand, keep an eye on the pieces your opponent keeps undefended. As the game progresses, you might have a tactic of your own, such as this one. Third step is about avoiding typical mistakes. I'm gonna mention typical mistakes across different elo ranges. If you're making them, it could be what's holding you back. If you're under 1000 elo, your biggest problem is hanging pieces. You leave pieces undefended and miss straightforward tactics. You're probably learning to avoid blunders, but it's still a common sight to see queens or rooks getting captured for free. The focus here should be on simply not blundering material. If you're somewhere between 1000 and 1300 elo, you don't hang pieces as much, but you're bad at spotting tactics. Learning basic tactical patterns is essential to move up from this tier. Most typical mistake between 1300 and 1500 is the nasty habit of playing bad moves because you know that they work on your level. To level up, you're gonna have to stop using dirty tricks to win games early. Players between 1500 and 1700 don't know basic endgames. They also play opening moves without thinking about them. In other words, not actually understanding why they're playing the moves they're playing. This might work in lower elo, but not anymore. 1700 to 1900. Here players exchange pieces without thinking about the consequences for the endgame. Sometimes they simplify without realizing they've disadvantaged themselves. Don't just trade because you can. Trade because it benefits you. The fourth step. 10 rules to improve your endgame. The king must be active. Even though white and black have equal material, white's king is more active, therefore he's going to win. Passed pawns must be pushed. The quickest way to win most endgames is to simply push your passed pawns. Rooks belong behind passed pawns. Not even Magnus Nakamura can stop this pawn now. Avoid backwards, doubled, and isolated pawns. Both sides have the same material, but black is winning regardless. When you're up material, exchange pieces, not pawns. If you exchange pawns, you're more likely to draw. But when you're down material, exchange pawns, not pieces. With pawns on only one side, it's usually a draw even if you're up a pawn. Easiest endgames to draw are opposite colored bishops. Don't put your pawns on the same color as your bishop. It is usually worth giving up a pawn to get a rook on the 7th rank. If you've followed this video so far, you've learned the things that the masters had to learn long before you, but they wouldn't be where they're at if not for the fifth step. They've all spent countless hours studying chess. I'll leave you with a 30-minute per day training plan that will put you ahead of people who only blindly play blitz and never see improvement. Each day you will spend 30 minutes doing one of those things. Doing puzzles to improve your tactics, studying opening theory, studying endgame theory. Stick to this and you'll crush everyone around you. If you've enjoyed this video, you should watch this next.